Maximizing domestic farm production is a big part of how we will make America affordable again and bring down grocery prices for American families.
Stepping in to support struggling farmers around the nation, we get local reaction to a plan by the White House to address rising costs brought on by tariffs.
It's too expensive. There's no pathway to home ownership, and there is just a corrupt political culture that has created the situation that we're in. And my argument is, and is going to continue to be, that until we root out that corruption, we are not going to have affordability in the state.
Making a plan to address concerns for California families, we hear from former Assembly Speaker Ian Calderon about why he wants to become the state's next governor.
All the steel, all the copper, all the things that you need to lay track. We've done that. I'm pretty confident that this system is going to be built and people will be right in it.
One step closer to getting things back on track. We look at the logistical hurdles facing California's high-speed rail after bidding for construction was approved. All that and more right now on Sunday Morning Matters.
Connecting you to issues that matter across the valley, around the state, to the halls of Congress. Sunday Morning Matters starts now.
Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Eric Rucker. We begin this morning with a look back at a plan to support farmers around the nation after tariffs have driven costs up for consumers and producers alike. President Trump last week announcing $12 billion will be put towards bailing out American farmers who are dealing with reduced crop prices and higher operating costs brought on by the president's tariffs. The Trump administration says the aid will come as direct payments to farmers by the end of February. Some Democrats have been quick to point out that the only reason the bailout is needed is because of the president's trade war with China and other nations.
These direct payments will give producers the breathing room they need to market this year's harvest and plan for next season.
Now Donald Trump's patting himself on the back, acting like a hero to farmers, while using taxpayer dollars to clean up the mess he created.
The Trump administration says it expects China will ultimately purchase the crops it usually buys from the U.S. despite the ongoing tensions over trade. While the majority of those bailout funds will support farmers impacted by the tariffs, that does not necessarily mean that local farmers can expect much from Washington. Our Brianna Bias got reaction from the Fresno County Farm Bureau about what they think about the White House's decision.
Financial relief is on the way for U.S. farmers, but it won't do California very much good.
We love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me.
The Trump administration has approved the release of $12 billion to help farmers who are impacted by the president's tariffs.
We inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country, and we're taking care of it.
Of that money, $11 billion will go to help row crop farmers. A statement from the USDA lists those approved crops.
When it comes to tariffs, it's really crop specific. There are some crops that have been heavily impacted, particularly when you look at the Midwest crops of corn and soybeans, heavily impacted the last couple of years.
One of the few California crops on this list is cotton, but it's not referring to the variety of cotton that California primarily grows.
Most California crops the last year has not necessarily been impacted by the current tariffs that we're seeing, but it doesn't mean long-term that we haven't seen impacts.
Ryan Jacobson with the Fresno County Farm Bureau says just because fewer California farmers were impacted by the tariffs doesn't mean they don't need the money. He says their operating costs have skyrocketed in the last 5 years and their incomes have stayed the same.
California ag is extraordinarily suffering right now. I would argue that we haven't seen anything like the current conditions probably since the early 1980s.
That's where the final $1 billion of approved funds come in. That money is reserved for the nation's specialty crops, aka nearly everything grown in California.
Almonds, grapes, peaches, plums, nectarines, to you name it.
Jacobson expects the federal government to release that slice of the pie sometime after the holidays. For Sunday Morning Matters, I'm Brianna Bias.
Also last week, the Federal Reserve made its third rate cut of the year as many Americans say they are concerned about the high cost of living. The Fed announced a 0.25% cut in interest rates last Wednesday, bringing the key rate close to 3.6%. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says there is still a long way to go to get to the ideal rate of around 2%. The cut comes as President Trump has been pushing for more interest rate cuts and criticized the Fed's decision on Wednesday for not going far enough.
We did a rather, I would say a rather small number that could have been doubled, at least doubled.
The cuts also come as the president has been speaking about concerns about high costs, but maintains they are part of what he calls an affordability hoax that he blames on Democrats and former President Joe Biden. As part of the deal to end the record-long shutdown, Senate Republican leadership allowed a vote to extend subsidies that would help keep health care premiums down last week, despite the fact that they were doomed to fail in Washington. Our Washington correspondent, Kristen Eskow, explains how more on this potential second vote on a Republican plan seems to lack support.
The issue that divided lawmakers during the government shutdown is front and center Wednesday on Capitol Hill.
This vote is going to be one of the most important votes that they take in the whole term of the Senate.
On Thursday, senators will vote on separate plans meant to lower health care costs. Democrats have proposed a 3-year extension of pandemic-era tax credits for patients who receive health insurance through the Affordable Care Act marketplaces. They're set to expire at the end of the year.
We're offering a very simple proposal that would stop this catastrophe in its tracks on January 1st.
But Republicans say they aren't on board with an extension without any reforms.
A Democrat plan that will lower health care costs is a fantasy.
Instead, they've proposed health savings accounts for up to $1,500 each for people enrolled in a bronze or catastrophic ACA plan and earning less than 700% of the federal poverty level.
That would send the money directly to the enrollee, to the patient, to the consumer, and let them be in charge of purchasing the health care they want at a price they can afford.
In only a few months, California voters will cast their ballots to decide who will go head-to-head to become the next governor of the Golden State. Joining me now to discuss his campaign to become California's next top executive officer is former California Assembly Majority Leader Ian Calderon. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on Sunday Morning Matters. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So let's start off very simply. What made you decide that you wanted to run for governor?
Quite simply is, I've got a young family. I have 4 little kids. My kids are 8, 6, 5, and 4. And my wife and I, after having some pretty serious conversations, started to doubt the future of our kids in our own state. And I know that if we're having these conversations, so too are so many other families, not just about their kids, but about themselves and their future in the state. It's too expensive. There's no pathway to home ownership. And there is just a corrupt political culture that has created this situation that we're in. And my argument is, and is going to continue to be, that until we root out that corruption, we are not going to have affordability in this state. We're not going to have a pathway to home ownership in this state. And I believe, given my experience being the former majority leader of the Assembly and the fact that I've been a business owner for the last 5 years, living in the real world with everybody else, that I am best positioned to take that on.
All right, so you're joining a very packed field. So in a race with some high-profile candidates, how do you consider yourself being somebody who stands out to the voters?
Well, I'm running in a lane that no one else can take from me, or no one else shares. I got elected to the state assembly just after turning 27 years old. That was the first campaign I had ever run. I was the first of my generation ever elected to the state legislature. I'm a millennial. And then in a few short years, I became the youngest majority leader in the history of the state. And I loved my job. I loved what I did. I loved the issues that I got to work on. But because I was young when I got elected, I had a lot of major life milestones that happened. I got engaged, I got married, I had my first kid, second kid, third kid. Our fourth came a little bit later. He was a surprise for us, but the family wouldn't be the same without him. But I had power, I had influence, and I gave that up to go and be with my family. And most people in my position, they don't do that. And there was no shortage of people telling me that I was making the wrong decision, that I should stay in because I could be a member of Congress. I could run statewide, stick in it. Nobody gives up power. But power wasn't the thing that was most important to me. For me, it was being a dad and not missing important moments in my kids' life. So that's why I left. But now I'm coming back because of what we had just talked about. It's too difficult to live in this state. And I want to know that my kids, your kids, our kids have a future in this state. And that isn't going to happen if we keep electing the same people with the same ideas and pulling from the same box of old solutions.
All right, so people watching this who will cast their ballots just a few months for the primary, they don't really know exactly where you stand, what your platform is. What are some of the top issues that you would hope to address if and when you are elected as governor?
I mean, housing and pathway to home ownership is absolutely number one. We want to freeze the rent. Rent is too high. It's too unaffordable. It's too expensive. You got a lot of people in the state spending 50+% on their monthly income on rent alone. And anybody in that situation is never going to be able to save enough money to actually afford a down payment for a house. But the way we do that is we actually create a pathway to home ownership. 55% of Californians are actually homeowners, and it's expensive to even stay in that home. And so creating that pathway to home ownership, really leaning into home ownership. I mean, when I got elected, we were 3 million units short of need, and we still here today, and that was in 2012, and we still here today in 2025 are 3 million units short. And so what that tells me and what that shows me and what I did see during my time in the legislature is that there was just a system that is in place that is enriching a lot of people, but that benefit isn't coming to us. So we create that pathway to home ownership. We root out the corruption and the ineffectiveness of government, getting rid of unnecessarily duplicative regulations so that we can build homes and really focus on accountability. But unless we can provide a pathway to home ownership and we can root out the fact that there's no accountability in this system right now and in government right now, we are never going to have an affordable California.
Still to come on Sunday Morning Matters, a plan to train more firefighters ahead of the next couple fire seasons in California. Coming up, a look at how much it could cost to prepare former inmates to protect California communities. But first, we're going to continue our conversation with former Assembly Speaker Ian Calderon about why he believes he is best suited to become California's next governor, especially as state leadership faces friction from the White House.
You're watching Sunday Morning Matters.
So whether it's on air, in print, online, there has been a lot of tension lately between Governor Newsom and the White House. How will you work with the Trump administration if elected to ensure California gets the resources that it needs, whether it's for, say, disaster relief funding or important programs or anything else along those lines? How does the leader in California, if you become elected, work hand in hand with the leader in Washington, D.C.?
Look, I mean, I think that that's important. I think that our politics have just become too nationalized. I don't know at this point that we can get away from it because it just sucks all the air out of the room. But I'm very confident, because this is how I feel, and this is what I'm feeling from people that I'm talking to on a daily basis, that they want the next governor that's going to be focused on California, California needs, California's issues. And so for me, I'm going to focus on whoever wants to help our state. I will work with anybody that wants to work with me to solve the challenges that are facing our state. But I also don't like being in this position where we're under anyone's thumb. You know, we talk a lot about being the 4th largest economy in the world. Well, why don't we put our money where our mouth is and actually insulate ourselves and protect ourselves? Find new ways to create programs that generate more revenue for this state so that we can't be threatened by the federal government that they're going to pull our federal funding. So I'd rather be in a California and live in a California where we're not dependent on anybody else other than ourselves, because nobody cares more about Californians than ourselves. But to the extent that the Trump administration and the federal government is willing to help us and work with us to solve our challenges like housing and affordability, then I'll work with anyone that's committed to doing that.
So you recently visited the Central Valley. What did you learn about the needs of the Valley and its diverse communities, and how will you fight to secure those resources for this important region in our state?
Well, I really appreciated my time. We had 13 hours worth of events in the Central Valley on Wednesday. And I want to thank my good friend, Supervisor Chance Condit from Stanislaus County, for helping me organize these events. We had a lot of great conversations. I learned a lot. And what I learned mostly from the Central Valley is that everybody in the Central Valley feels like Sacramento treats them like flyover country, like they don't matter, and that they're always playing second, third, fourth fiddle to the Bay Area and to LA. And a really good example of that is that I visited Monterey Park Tract in Stanislaus County, one of the poorest communities in the area. And all these people want is access to clean drinking water coming out of their tap. And I know that the governor, and this is a two-decade issue that they've been dealing with at least. And I know that the governor was out there campaigning about 6 years ago, and nothing has been done. You know, you could probably solve for less than $10 million, help them create actual clean drinking water and build that infrastructure to do it. So over 6 years, they've been promised that the state is going to do this, but yet no money has come, no change has been made, so they don't have clean, safe drinking water. But yet, on a drop of a dime, we can find $250 million to fund a special election for political, ultimately political purposes. So I just think that the Central Valley is tired of being overlooked. People just want their life to be easier. They want to feel like they matter, that they matter to Sacramento, to decision makers, and they're very, very committed to supporting a governor that sees them, hears them, and supports them.
So earlier this month, the Legislative Analyst's Office came out and said, hey, we're going to have a major deficit next year, far greater than what the Newsom administration had predicted earlier in the year. A lot of the reasons behind that, spending more money than what the state is bringing in. In your mind, what is the cause of this? I imagine it's along those lines. And how do you fix that if you become governor?
I mean, look at it. It's hard when you have all these groups coming to you and saying that they need help and they need support, that they need funding. It's hard not to. We're all compassionate people. It's hard not to want to be helpful and supportive. But our resources, what our resources are, and it's important to be responsible with the money that we have. But then also, there's a lot of inefficiencies and ineffectiveness in government, the way that government operates. I mean, we probably waste about $1 billion of fraud a year just because payments are going to people in places that they shouldn't be going to. Why aren't we looking at blockchain technology, which is the digital ledger technology that supports Bitcoin, as a way to issue payments in this state? We could save $1 billion right there. Now, I know the deficit is closer to $18 billion, but why don't we take the money that we have and find programs that are going to yield a higher ROI, financial, fiscal ROI, so that we can save ourselves from these ebbs and flows in the future. I mean, we have a state budget that's heavily dependent on income tax. Well, I just fundamentally believe we pay too much in taxes in general to live in this state. But if we could better purpose our existing dollars to generate revenue, we could alleviate those income tax ebbs and flows, alleviate the tax burden on Californians, and put ourselves in a position where we can have more money in the pot that we can be responsible with to kind of stave off and prepare ourselves for these economic downturns, which under heavy income tax states, it's an inevitability that we're going to go through these ebbs and flows and see a recession.
So I started this interview very specifically. Why are you running for governor? Now I'm going to broaden it out significantly. And tell me, is there anything else that I have not asked you during this interview that you would like people out there to know?
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a dad and a husband. That's the most important thing in the world to me. Everything that's the most important thing in the world to me is tied to the future of California and who the next governor of California is going to be. I have experience. What I've done and what I've accomplished, I've done it being the youngest to do it in the history of this state. I've been a leader in the legislature. I've seen the way that it works. I've seen these experts and these people that, tell you, well, if you just pass this bill or if you just make this one budget allocation, we're going to solve all the problems. Yet, 5 years I've been out of the legislature, I'm not seeing a lot of solving of problems. I'm seeing a lot of Band-Aids. I'm seeing a lot of kicking the can down the road. And we can't afford to live under these circumstances anymore. We have to be serious about accountability. We have to be serious about creating pathways to real, actual home ownership. And unless we're willing to tackle the accountability issues, unless we're willing to be responsible and smart and think more than just in the moment right now and trying to find ways to work with everybody we possibly can that's willing to help us solve our challenges, these challenges are going to persist. So my argument is we need a new generation of leadership. If you're looking at what's happening across this country, there is a changing of the guard of leadership. I believe I best represent that in this race. That's why I'm running, and I can't wait to be able to get back out on the campaign trail and have more conversations with people because I feel their frustrations and I want to actually get down to the bottom of solving these challenges.
Candidate for California Governor Ian Calderon joining us on Sunday Morning Matters. Thank you so much for your time, sir. We appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you for having me.
And you can watch my interview with Ian Calderon again by visiting our website. That is yourcentralvalley.com. And still ahead on Sunday Morning Matters, a major step in a project that has been years in the making. Coming up, we hear about the hurdles and obstacles still left for California's high-speed rail to become a reality.
You're watching Sunday Morning Matters.
California's high-speed rail project is just moved a step closer to becoming reality. The board behind the effort is launching the bidding process to lay the first tracks right here in the valley. But financial and logistical hurdles remain as critics call for high-speed rail to be derailed. Capitol correspondent Etan Wallace has both sides of this.
We're moving. We're going full steam ahead.
California High-Speed Rail Authority board member Henry Perea with that message about California's high-speed rail project set to one day connect Los Angeles and San Francisco and eventually San Diego to Sacramento.
It's just a matter of, keeping our foot on the gas and moving forward.
Moving forward is exactly what Perea says the board did late last month as it formally approved starting up the bidding process for companies to actually lay down the track for the first phase of the project in the Central Valley, a 119-mile route set to connect Kern County to Madera, just north of Fresno.
All the steel, all the copper, all the things that you need to lay track, we've done that. I'm pretty confident that this system is going to be built and people will be riding it.
But the project faces significant logistical and financial challenges. For starters, projections show when it's all said and done, it could cost anywhere between $88 to $128 billion. That's significantly higher than the original $45 billion estimate presented to voters when they approved the project in 2008. On top of that, while the High-Speed Rail Authority intends to finish the first phase, Bakersfield to Merced section of the project by 2033, there is no completion date for the full entire statewide route. The issue leading the Trump administration to withhold $4 billion in federal funding previously allocated for the project.
Hundreds of billions of dollars for this stupid project that should have never been built.
The Newsom administration has since sued the Trump administration over the federal funding and approved a separate plan to provide $1 billion in state funding for high-speed rail each year through 2045.
It's going to be transformative for us, but it's not going to replace anything. It's just going to give people one more option to travel.
Republicans, though, are demanding the governor stop the project in its tracks.
Pull the plug on this project, take those resources and put it into areas where we have shovel-ready projects that are better for all California citizens.
And project leaders say the goal is to start laying track on the first phase of the project by the end of next year. At the state capitol, Etan Wallace, KC24, local news that matters.
As we approach the one-year anniversary of the deadly fires in Southern California, a new funding effort is being taken to train hundreds of formerly incarcerated men and women to become firefighters. In total, $5.5 million from the voter-approved Prop 4 Climate and Wildfire Prevention Bond has been set aside for key programs focused on recruiting, training, and transitioning formerly incarcerated men and women to full-time firefighters. The Forestry and Fire Recruitment Program and the Future of the Fire Academy will use the funds to formally recruit and train 600 formerly incarcerated firefighters over the next 3 years.
There's an absolute need for this, and we shouldn't wait for a crisis to find out how important it is to make these investments. That's why we're doing it now. California's got to prepare for the future, and that's what this program does.
That funding effort has no formal opposition. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. We appreciate you. We'll be off for the holidays, but we'll see you soon next year.